All right, we ready to go, Adam?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you.
Can you smell me?
Unfortunately, not.
All right. Yeah, let's try again then. So, I just told you a little bit about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and if you're curious about my work in that regard, you can go to opencog.org. That's our open source project aimed at building human level thinking machines and ultimately greater than human level thinking machines. And if we had enough money, I think we could get there in between 5 and 10 years. So we're working on it. We're progressing as fast as we can with the limited resources we do have available, and we're starting a cool new collaboration with the roboticist David Hansen to use OpenCog to control the Hansen Robokind humanoid robots, which is all really interesting, but isn't exactly what I want to talk to you about today. What I want to talk to you about today is another application of AGI. Now, I think applying AGI to David Hansen's humanoid robots and other robots that move around in the human world with us, this is really important because, I mean, we humans are bodies, not just minds. And if you want to make an AGI that's anything like a human, it's got to have an embodiment vaguely like a human embodiment. I mean, it doesn't have to have two nostrils in its nose. It doesn't have to be nearsighted. But it has to move around in the same world that humans move around in, see the same kinds of things we do the same rough kinds of things that we do. Otherwise, it's not going to understand our lives, and it's not going to understand our language either. I mean, so much of our language is pervaded with bodily and spatial metaphors. We reach out to someone, we grasp a point, we see an abstract idea, we feel it in our gut. That kind of AGI is really important, and it's what I'm spending most of my time on now, putting AGIs in bodies, either in a virtual world or in a physical robot, so they can have a human-like understanding when the right cognitive algorithms, such as OpenCog, are applied. That's really cool. But it's also possible to have AGIs with a very, very different embodiment than human beings. And one example of this would be an AGI connected to the global brain. Now, last week I was in Brussels at the Free University of Brussels, and they have an institute there called the Global Brain Institute, devoted entirely to studying the idea of a global brain, a distributed worldwide intelligence made up of human beings and computers and mobile phones all networked together. The global brain refers to the overall distributed intelligence of the massive combination meat and silicon computing network that is spanning the world. And that's a pretty exciting topic. Francis Heiligen at the Free University of Brussels, he and I organized a conference back in 2001 called the Global Brain Zero Conference. And we tried to get people excited about exploring this idea. That was a bit ahead of its time, but I think now the global brain idea has a lot more currency, because now more than 2001, everyone can see how fast communications travel around the internet and how much each of our lives are governed by these mobile devices we carry around with us all the time, and by our connectivity to the internet, even moving toward wearable computers and implants and so forth. At the Global Brain 2001 conference that Francis and I organized, there were basically three views of the global brain presented. One was the global brain is already here, even if we don't realize it. I mean, a neuron in the human brain doesn't necessarily understand what the whole human brain is doing. Similarly, there could be a global brain having its own thoughts and its own concerted trains of action, And we're playing a part in it, and we don't know it, because we exist on a different level. The second point of view was, there's not much global brain here yet, but one is going to emerge spontaneously out of the internet at some point. So at some point, the internet is going to wake up. Peter Russell wrote a book called The Global Brain Awakens with this theme. And the third point of view was, the global brain isn't really here yet. It's going to come, but we have to build it. And if you believe a global brain, a kind of distributed collective intelligence, is something that people are going to build, then you can look at it in a couple different ways, which overlap with each other. One way is, okay, you could create tools, Web 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and so forth, tools to make people's interactions more intelligent, so as to get more collective intelligence from the totality of people interacting with each other in the world. The other approach to building a global brain would be to create AGI systems to kind of guide the internet and the overall communication network. And each of those approaches may have some meaning. I've found it interesting in thinking about the global brain to draw analogies between the human mind and the global brain. And you can see a number of them. I mean, the human mind has a long-term memory. We remember things for our whole lives. Of course, the web and various email and mailing list archives, the Wayback Machine, all these are the long-term memory of the global brain. The human mind also has a working memory, a short-term memory, the things that are important to us at any given point in time. And, the global brain has this too. There's Twitter, for example. These are things of ephemeral passing importance. There's the news media, which trumpets some things briefly, then they go away. These are analogous to our working memory, our short-term memory. The human mind has rapid reactive processes and also slower term processes. So does the global brain. If you want a quick reaction to something, you can post it on Twitter or Facebook. If you want a slower, more deliberative, thoughtful reaction, you could write a scientific paper and post it on archive.org or some online journal. And you'll get a slower, more in-depth, deliberative reaction, more analogous to the human mind's deeper thought processes. The global brain has metacognition, thinking about thinking. Stuff like we're doing right now. Right now I am performing metacognition for the global brain. I am being an instance of the global brain thinking about itself. Of course, there's reinforcement learning in the global brain, just like in the human brain. Things that don't work don't get popularized. Services that are bad go the way of Friendster or MySpace. An awful lot of the things you see in the human brain and mind you have in the global brain. But there's some things that don't carry over that well, and these are interesting. The self is one example. Like all other humans, I have a self model in my own mind. A model, hey, I'm Ben Gertzel, I'm an AI researcher, I'm 46 years old. I'm now in Rockville, Maryland. I live in Hong Kong. I'm sitting here drinking a cup of tea. The global brain, as far as we can tell, doesn't currently have a sort of holistic, integrated model of itself. It's more of a diffuse sort of intelligence. This ties in with some other features of the human mind that the global brain appears to lack. The human mind, for better and for worse, has a certain set of motivations. I mean, we come with some innate biological motivations. We want to have sex. We want to get food. We want to entertain ourselves. We want to experience novelty. The global brain doesn't really have a concerted motivational structure like this. It doesn't seem to have a kind of virtual serial machine, a sequence of conscious thoughts bubbling up to the top like we do. But there's no reason you couldn't build this, and this is one of my key points I want to come to here. Once we have an intelligent AGI system, an AGI system that we've built, say, to control a humanoid robot, once we have an AGI system with basic common sense knowledge, that we've gotten by embodying the AGI in a manner similar to humans, we can then let this AGI loose on the global brain. And the AGI can then serve as a self-model, as a motivational system, as a stream of awareness for the global brain. What I'm suggesting is to build a big AGI system whose purpose is to serve as a sort of central cortex of the global brain. This can let the global brain transition from being a sort of diffuse, distributed kind of intelligence to being a more narrowly focused sort of intelligence analogous to the human mind. And we can then go even further if we want to. I mean, we human beings have selves. We have our coherent understanding of who we are. And then sometimes, if we want to, we can get beyond ourselves. I mean, you have meditation, you have psychedelics. A human being can drop acid and go way beyond their own self. It's important that they have a self to go beyond, but then they can go beyond it, drop it, and move on to something better, building on their self and experiencing the world in a broader way. What happens if you take the global brain, build an AGI self for the global brain, and then let the global brain experience the global brain equivalent of an acid trip? You have the global brain with its own self, its own model of the world in its own mind. Then the global brain transcends beyond itself and feels like its thoughts are no longer individual, but moving with the flow of the universe. Sounds kind of weird, admittedly. However, you know, the internet itself would have seemed pretty weird to my grandparents, and they would have thought you were nuts if you told them we were all going to be carrying around mobile phones with us and connecting with people all over the world every minute. So, yeah, the idea of a global brain tripping on digital acid, launching the singularity, may sound completely insane at the moment, but there's a lot of depth to these sort of ideas, and the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. So to wrap up, the main point I wanted to make here is, for starters, I think we want to make AGIs in human-like bodies with a human-like understanding, because that's the most tractable way to create an AGI, is to model the AGI based on what we can understand. But that's just the beginning. There's a lot of further and more exciting directions AGIs could take after that, and looking at the notion of the global brain leads us to one of them, because the global brain now is an amazing, exciting, but very diffuse sort of intelligence. By giving the global brain a central cortex consisting of a powerful AGI system, we can lead things in entirely new and very exciting directions. And it's amazing to be living at a time when ideas like these ones I'm talking about now are at least plausible conjectures rather than just purely whacked out fantasies. So, thanks for indulging me in some imaginations for a few minutes. Sorry I couldn't join you in person. Thanks for having me.
Come back next year in person.
Yeah, I will, definitely.
We're going to have our next speaker now. His name is Josh Harris.